What's going on, everybody? It's your big homie, the Armchair Operator, and welcome to today's video. Now, if you're new to my channel, welcome. If you enjoyed today's content, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Become a part of the family. We would love to have you. And if you're coming back to my channel, thank you so much for coming back to the channel. I really do appreciate it. And I hope that you also enjoyed today's content. Today, I got another versus video on tap for y'all. We are going to put, which has now become officially my newest pickup, this CZ P10C ported model up against one of the other favorites in my collection, my Smith & Wesson M&P metal frame carry comp. But before we get into that, first, a little bit of housekeeping. First, as always, I want to give a huge shout out to the team over at the Bunker Gun Shop for always supporting this channel. My guys, Chris, my man Frank Bank, the entire Bunker 1 and Bunker 2 team, thank you so much for always supporting the channel. Second bit of housekeeping. I am not offering for sale any firearms or accessories on this channel. This is not what this channel is about. All of my videos are strictly for informational purposes only. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into the meat and potatoes of what this video is all about. Now, if you're not familiar with my versus videos, they go a little something like this. I put two near pair firearms together to see how they compare against one another in a few categories. Some of those categories include features, shootability, reliability, ergonomics, MSRP, and value for the money spent. The idea here is to give you all the consumers a more informed idea as to what these particular products offer and to help you to make a more informed decision as you're making your next firearms purchase. So I really am curious about this particular versus. Ever since I first got my hands on the P10C ported model, it's very similar in some respects to the M&P, even though my M&P is an aluminum frame version and the CZ is a polymer gun, but they're kind of playing in the same pocket, for lack of a better way of putting it. So we are going to put them two head to head and see which one comes out on top. And of course, at the end of that, I'll give you what I would pick to be my go-to if I could only pick one firearm between the two. All right, so first thing we're going to do, we're going to head on over to the range. I'm going to give you the shootability, reliability portion. I know that people ultimately want to see how these particular items work and handle before anything else. And then after that, we're going to come back to the review space, and then we're going to dive into each particular item and see what they're all working with and how they compare to one another. And then we're just going to close it out. All right, so without further ado, meet me over at the range. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the range portion of this versus video. So we got the two contestants down here on the table, and I have my target out there at 10 yards. So I'm going to do like I normally do. We're going to have, I think I'm going to do 4 courses of fire this time. 10 rounds, 2 mags each. And essentially, whichever gun has the tightest group is going to win. Whichever one has the least malfunctions is going to win the reliability portion. All right, so without further ado, let's go. Let's get to it. First up is going to be the P10C, which is the target on the left, and then we're going to switch over to the M&P metal carry comp, which is target on the right. All right, so let's go. First up, that CZ. Okay. All right, let's take a look at that target. So right now, this is what we're looking at with the CZ. All up in here. All right, let's put that target back to 10 yards and let's see what this M&P metal carry comp can do. So right away, in my opinion, I think the CZ is a little bit softer, but of course the M&P has better ergos than the P10C, excuse me. The P10C feels a little softer shooting, is what I'm trying to say. The M&P has better ergonomics. Well, let's see if this better ergonomics and arguably a better trigger is going to translate to better shooting performance. All right, let's check that target. Well, I'll be damned. This is what we're looking at with the M&P. Pretty terrible. A lot of it is off the paper. I mean, so far the P10C seems to be winning this one. Let's change the target and let's go again. All right, now let me just say this. I'm not gonna make any excuses for my craptacular performance with the M&P metal carry comp. So we gonna run it again. This time, I'm gonna do better. We're gonna put that target back at the 10 yards and let's see what it's hitting for. But again, the whole point of the shootability portion is to see how accurate I can be with a particular firearm and which one feels a bit more comfortable to shoot. So far, I think the P10C with that comp on the front, the port, whatever, is actually winning as far as felt recoil and accuracy. All right, let's go again for round 2. First up, P10C. All right, let's see what that CZ can do. Man, I'm gonna tell y'all something. For a polymer gun, this thing is soft shooting. Like, seriously. Let's check that target. Look at this here. All right, this is what we're working with the CZ. For the most part, she be hitting. All right, let's try the M&P metal carry comp. I promise, I'm gonna do better this time with that damn carry comp. This is one of my favorite pieces too. And I know y'all gonna hold me accountable to it too. I don't know, man, it ain't looking so good, man. All right, let's check the target. Well, we're more on the paper now with the metal carry comp, and they're pretty tight, but still. My shots are going too far to the right. So that's a grip thing. I got to adjust for that. But, I mean, so far, after 2 rounds, P10C is actually winning. So this time we're gonna put like a normal man-sized target up there. Well, kind of, you see what I mean. We're gonna put a bigger target up there and we're gonna put it at 7 yards and we're gonna run it back. All right, you know how we do. First up, P10C. I'm telling y'all, man, this thing is smooth. People be sleeping on CZs, man. Don't sleep on CZ. Very nice. Let's check that target. So this is where we're at 7 yards with the P10C. Like I said in my review about the CZ P10C, it could use a little bit more texture at the higher areas of the grip, and on the sides, like closer to the slide itself, is a little too smooth for that. But I am going to get some handle it grip tapes and put a little bit of extra texture there so I can bite down on it a little bit more. But I think it's time for the M&P. Let's change the target and see what the M&P hitting for. All right, M&P, let's see what you got. CZ is kicking your ass right now, sir. Okay. Better. Let's check the target. So this is what we're working with as far as the M&P goes. Pretty tight, lost a few on the end there, but I don't know. I think that we can definitively say that the P10C is going to win the shootability portion of this versus. So I know I said 4 quarters to 5, but I'm gonna cap it at 3 because right now it's kind of a slaughterhouse, as y'all can see. But anyway, if this is it for you, thank you for watching this portion of the review. If for the rest of it, if you'd like to see the in-depth tabletop comparison between these two pistols, just come with me over to the review space and we're gonna dive right in real quick. All right, so like I said, this is it for you. I appreciate you. Thank you for watching. And for the rest of y'all, let's head back to the review space. Okay, everybody, welcome to the review space. And just a quick recap from the shootability, reliability portion of the video. Both firearms are basically reliable. They've been reliable throughout, so they each get a point there. But the P10C ported is going to get the shootability point overall, simply because the groups for that particular firearm were tighter and a bit more consistent. Now let's head on over here and let's get into the next category, which will be the features. Now the features actually breaks down into several subcategories: sights, slide serrations, trigger, optics compatibility, modularity, and then the features of the barrel itself. So let's start at the top. We're going to start with the sights. So both firearms have pretty good sighting setups. The M&P has a serrated blacked out rear with a U-notch and a green tritium felt front sight, while the P10C has, I'm going to say it just has 3-dot sights. They look greenish to me. They look like they're night sights, but they are not night sights, at least not on this model. So what I do like about the sights for the P10C is that they're raised up slightly. They're not standard height sights like that of the M&P. And the advantage of that is when you mount an optic, you're going to get a natural co-witness with this firearm versus this particular firearm with no co-witness. And if you want a co-witness with this version of the M&P, you're going to have to replace these sights with optics or suppressor height sights, which they do have available, but that's just something that you're going to have to add later on to get that co-witness, whether with the P10C you get it out of the box. That being said, I'm going to give that particular point for the sights over to the P10C. Next, we're going to talk about the slide serrations. Now, the slide serrations on the P10C are very good and very functional. They're aggressive enough to get the job done. I never really have felt my fingers slip when manipulating the slide on this firearm. But with the M&P, these serrations are just better. They're very aggressive, both in the front and the rear. Some people might find that to be a bit too aggressive, but for all intents and purposes, for me, I like the added aggression, because if my hands are sweaty or wet or God forbid bloody and I gotta manipulate this slide, the chances of my fingers slipping on this slide are far lower than that of the P10C. So we're going to give the slide serrations over to the M&P. Next, we're going to talk about the trigger. So the trigger on the P10C, first we got to verify clear. My apologies, I didn't verify clear. So chamber is empty, magazine is empty, and we're filming in a safe controlled environment. Same thing with the M&P. Magazine is empty, that chamber is empty, and once again, safe and controlled environment. Magazines being reinserted for aesthetic purposes. So the trigger. This comes in, on the P10C, the trigger's coming in at about 5.5 pounds. And this is the wall, so it's not a whole lot of take-up, which I think is really nice. And then you hit that wall, and then the brake. So the brake is just a little bit on the stiffer side. I would say kind of comparable to that of a Glock Gen 5. And that's your reset. So it has a short, crisp reset, and then you're back on the wall, and boom. So for an EDC style or duty gun, this is more than acceptable in my opinion. Now, as far as the M&P goes, this is a performance center trigger, and their performance center triggers come in around the 4-poundish mark. Now with this trigger, you get a bit more take up, as you can see right there. Then you hit the wall, then you pull through the wall, hit brakes, and then you get the reset, and that's the reset, and then you're back on that wall again, and then it drops. So one of my criticisms for the M&P Metal Series has been the fact that the trigger reset is something that you're going to have to learn as you're manipulating the firearm via dry fire or live fire. It's very subtle. It's not as crisp a reset as you would find on the P10C here. So I'm going to give the trigger over to the M&P in this case, only because it's softer. It takes a little bit more practice, but once you get it down, you can be pretty proficient with the trigger on this particular firearm. Next, we're going to go to the optics system. So both firearms come out with optics cuts out of the box here. As you can see, you got the P10 over here, and with that broken screw. If you want more information on that broken screw, go ahead and check out my review of this particular firearm. I'll discuss that in more detail in that video. And then, of course, you got the cover plate here on the M&P. Now, here's the thing. Both particular guns are optics cut. I consider the M&P fully optics ready out of the box. The reason for this is that this particular gun comes with your optics plates, and it comes with your adapter plates for all your major brands, your RMRs, your Delta Points, your Burris, and so your Doctor plates, and so on and so forth. They may be polymer, but you do get the optics plate. So when you purchase this firearm, you have the ability to put an optic on it out of the box. Whereas with the CZ here, you have to order the optics plates from CZ off of their website. So that does kind of suck, but this is not the only manufacturer that does it. But the point of the matter is, this particular gun is fully optics ready out of the box, so I'm going to give that feature point over to the M&P. Next, we're basically going to skip the modularity portion because they're really not modular handguns. Of course, you can swap different parts from these guns from other particular firearms of the same model. I mean, you know, they're mass-produced guns, so that's pretty self-explanatory, but they're not really modular. And when it comes down to the barrels, the M&P barrel is listed as 4.25 inches. It's slightly longer than that of the P10C, but it's really not noticeable. What is noticeable is the port on the front. Notice on the CZ, the port is quite a bit larger than that of the M&P out of the box. And I think that is one of the contributing factors as to the reason why the P10C is just a bit more shootable than the M&P. So as far as that particular feature goes, I'm going to give the point over to the P10C in that regard. Just a bigger opening up at the top, which basically puts us to a total of 3-2 for the M&P over the P10C in the features category. So I'm going to give the features point overall to the M&P carry comp. Next, we're going to talk about the ergonomics of the pistols. So the P10C has good ergonomics. It has more of a European style grip here, as you can notice by the hump right here. But it has really good texture on the grip itself, and you also have a bit of a memory pad right here, sorta, and you have a memory pad right over here, kind of, sorta. But what lets this particular gun down in the ergonomics part is that this area right here is just smooth. So when you got that good two-hand grip on there and you're operating the gun, you don't really get a whole lot of traction up here. If this texturing system went the entire length of the grip, this thing would be outstanding. That's my only complaint, really, as far as the ergonomics with the gun. But as far as how it feels in the hand, it feels really good. And even though this is technically a compact, the grip itself is very comparable to that of a full size. It's not quite a full size. Let me move the magazine so you can show it. So there's a little bit of pinky hang off, but not a whole lot. And I have larger size hands, so that just gives you an idea of what you might be working with the P10C right here. Now, as far as the M&P goes, Smith & Wesson grips have always just fit my hands very well, because they have good texture. They have a noticeable palm swell. I don't know if you can see that, but you see how you got that little bump out on the sides, that good palm swell there. It just really puts this gun, locks it in the hand. Even though this area is smooth, particularly on the metal frame model, there's more texture here and here on top of the palm swell. It just gives me a bit more leverage with this firearm. But even so, they should have textured this particular part of the grip on the standard model M&Ps. I believe the Spec Series V has texture up here, which, by the way, that firearm will be coming to the channel at some point down the road. But anyway, all in all, I say all that to say, as far as the ergonomics go, the M&P is going to win it for me. So the M&P is going to get the feature point for the ergonomics. Next, we're going to talk about the ammo capacity. Both firearms come with 2 magazines out of the box when new. Personally, I think that all handguns should come with at least 3 magazines, but we're not going to go there right now. All right, so anyway, back on topic. So the M&P this is their full size model, and they come with 2 17-round magazines, standard M&P magazines that we're all familiar with. The P10C, on the other hand, comes with 2 15-round magazines. Now, these are how the magazines come out of the box when you first get it. Now, what they also give you is that they actually give you extended base plates, and I covered this in my review, but I just wanted to bring it up here. So they give you these extensions. They give you 2. And basically, you turn your 15-round magazine into this 18-round magazine. So strictly speaking, the P10C has the ability to give you 2 18-round magazines out of the box, or you can run with the 15-rounders. You have the ability to choose which one you want to use, assuming your state doesn't forbid you to have magazines over 15 rounds or 10 rounds. So that being said, ammo capacity, simply put, is going to go to the P10C. Next, let's move on to concealability. All right, so for this category, I figured I would add concealability back into the mix. I haven't really been talking about concealability in my recent versus videos, mainly because those are full-size guns. But since these guns are a little on the smaller side, I figured I would talk about it. So this is the compact version of the P10C. Of course, you got the CZ P10F, which is the full-size version, which has a longer barrel and a longer grip. This is actually the full-size version of the M&P, but the M&Ps come standard with a 4.25-inch barrel. So it's more so kind of in between, in my opinion, of a compact and a full-size. Think the Commander style of 1911 for more information if you really want to think about it. But they have a full-size grip too. Both firearms will make excellent EDC choices in terms of concealability. I have EDC this particular gun plenty of times, and a lot of times when it's colder out, I do EDC a full-size gun. I don't see having any issue with EDCing this particular gun. And as far as the particular footprint goes, and as you can see, I got the 18-round magazine installed in the P10C versus the 17-round inside of the M&P. It only sticks down just a little bit. And when it comes to EDC, the butt of the grip is the hardest part to conceal. So that can easily be remedied by putting the 15-rounder in there, and that'll just, shorten this up just a little bit. So, I mean, all in all, they're pretty comparable in terms of size, slide length, barrel length, and also grip length. So I want to tie them both out on concealability. Next, we're going to talk about the weight of each firearm. I already weighed both of these particular guns, but I'm just going to do it on camera just so that way you all can see it. Keep in mind that both firearms are completely empty, so we're taking the unloaded weight of each particular firearm. All right. First, let's start with the P10C. Now, the P10C is coming in at 26.42 ounces unloaded, while the M&P metal carry comp is coming in at 28.68 ounces. So the P10C is the lighter gun and it's going to win the point as far as the weight, but you can see this aluminum frame M&P is pretty close to this polymer gun. But either way, the numbers are the numbers. So the P10C is going to get the point in this category. The next category we're going to talk about is aftermarket support. And aftermarket support is one of those categories that I think is a little underrated in a sense, but I think it's important to a lot of people. Because when you buy a firearm, you want to know if you can get holsters for it, if you can get magazines for it, you know, all kinds of different accessories to make this a part of whatever rig that you're trying to create. For aftermarket support, I don't really think that that's a fair context, because the Smith & Wesson M&P has seen widespread adoption even amongst the law enforcement community, and this particular gun has been out for quite some time for the most part. Even though this is the M2.0, it's not all that dissimilar to that of Generation 1. So frankly, this is going to win aftermarket support. I don't really think there's any contest. But even so, don't think that you won't be able to find accessories and magazines for the P10C here. They are out there, they are plentiful, and they are not hard to find. But if you want something that you could just accessorize a bit easier, in my opinion, then the M&P would be the way to go. Next, we're going to talk about the MSRP of both pistols. The Smith & Wesson M&P metal frame carry comp, as you see here, has an MSRP of $999.99. Needless to say, it's not cheap. However, the street price of this particular firearm will vary depending on your location, where you find it. But just know that the MSRP is up there. Whereas the CZ P10C has an MSRP of $549, which is obviously several hundred units of measure cheaper than the M&P here, giving the MSRP category over to the CZ P10C by a landslide. And now with that, let's dive into the value for both of these particular firearms. So when talking about the value, at least in the context of these particular two, I'm looking at what you get feature-wise, how they operate, and just kind of comparing all that to the cost of entry between these two particular guns. And make no mistake, there's a lot about this M&P metal frame carry comp that is actually really good. But I think for a lot of people, the price of entry is just going to be a bit too steep for what you get. And that's been one of the big criticisms about Smith & Wesson's aluminum frame M&Ps. Now, don't get it twisted. I am a fan of their metal frame M&Ps. I done pretty much had damn near all of them up until this point so far, with the exception of the newest one, the Spec Series V. So I like them. But the thing about it is, I like them more so because I like metal frame firearms. And yeah, they have good features here and there, but I just like the brand. Now, if you were to ask me if it made sense for someone like, for example, if you're buying your first firearm, does it make sense to go and put out almost 1,000 units of measure to get, say, something like this? Or if you're going to spend a little over half the cost of this to get into something like this, which arguably, in my opinion, shoots better than this? that still has a decent amount of aftermarket support. It has good features, and this smooth area up here on the grip can easily be fixed with some handle it grips tapes. Like stuff like that is just easy to fix. So I mean, in my opinion, when it comes to the value for the money, I think the CZ P10C kind of blows this out of the water, mainly because you get a lot of the similar features for as far as, you know, compared to this, but you do so at almost half the price. And I think that for most people are going to be out there shopping, especially if you're shopping for your first firearm or an EDC firearm or whatever it is, I think that this would be a better value for the money over the M&P metal frame here. All right, so now that we've gone through all the categories, let's do a quick recap and tally up the total. Okay, now to recap. The features point goes over to the M&P metal carry comp, while the shootability point goes over to the P10C. Both firearms get a point for reliability, while the M&P gets the point for ergonomics. The point for the ammo capacity goes to the P10C, while again both firearms tie for concealability, earning them both a point for that category. The CZ P10C pretty much ran the table for the most part in terms of weight, MSRP, and as far as the value for the money, while the M&P metal carry comp gets the point for the aftermarket support, bringing us to a grand total of 5 for the metal carry comp and 7 for the P10C ported, making the P10C ported the winner of this versus. And we're back. So the CZ P10C ported is going to take this versus over the M&P metal frame carry comp, and in a way I'm a little surprised by that. I honestly thought it would be a little bit closer. Not to say the point spread was a huge difference between the two, but I just thought that going into this that they would be a bit more comparable, more so in terms of the shootability portion of it. I think that's the part that kind of surprised me the most. But in a way, it shouldn't surprise me, because the thing about CZs is that they have a naturally low bore axis. Like, look at the slide in relation to the frame and your grip. The slide is closer to your hand, so it gives it a lower bore axis, on top of the fact that this thing has a larger port versus that of, say, the Smith & Wesson here. The bore axis is slightly taller and the port is smaller. But CZ firearms, I don't know. I think that they're still kind of slept on, in my opinion, and it's been that way for a while. Most people are familiar with CZs when you're talking about, of course, you know, the Shadow 2 and the Tactical Sport and so on and so forth, and even the old school CZ75. But make no mistake, CZ makes some damn good polymer guns, like the P07, the P09. Like I said, I've owned both of those particular guns at one point, and I enjoyed them. The only reason why I don't have them today is that those particular models weren't optics ready, so I eventually traded them in. But they're solid, man. Like, listen, CZ firearms are good. Everybody talk about Canic. I know Canic is dope. Canic got great triggers, but I'm telling you, don't sleep on the CZ polymer guns. Now, a lot of people are familiar with the CZ P09 Nocturne, the 4-size model. When it came up, they was having some issues. Hopefully they corrected those issues, but like I said, overall, they're pretty solid guns. Now, as far as the operator's choice, if I could only pick one gun between these two to be a home defense gun, an EDC gun, a go to war gun, for lack of a bit, I don't know if we would want to go to war with a handgun, but whatever. If I had to pick only one between these two, I gotta say I will go with the Smith & Wesson here. Now, why do I pick the Smith & Wesson? Granted, like I said, I do like the M&P, and I like the ergonomics of the grip of the M&Ps. However, the aftermarket support for the M&Ps are just much better in my opinion. So it's a lot easier to source holsters. It's easier to get magazines and other aftermarket accessories and upgrades for this particular gun versus the P10C here. Now, that's the reason why I would pick this particular gun. And this particular firearm, I may do some things to this particular firearm. I don't know if I'm going to put an aftermarket trigger in here, but I did see that they actually have weighted, like a weight insert that you could put inside of the M&Ps to give it just a bit of extra weight, and I think that will help with the felt recoil in this. So that's something that I may very well do at some point in the near future, and of course put an optic on it and a light and all that stuff. I know it's looking kind of plain, but and like a duty gun, like if I was still, you know, working in security, if I were to pick a duty gun, like I said, I would pick this. It's a lot easier to get holsters for the M&P. That I'm going to leave it there. What do you all think about the Smith & Wesson carry comps or the CZ P10C ported? Let me know down in the comments section, y'all. Let's get this discussion popping. Oh, and one last thing. My comments for the M&P can also apply to the polymer frame models. So you don't have to aim high and go and get the aluminum frame model, which is the one that I have. But you can just get a basic M2.0 polymer frame, and that will put you more in line with this particular firearm in terms of the price. So that is also an option for you as well. But anyway, that's it for this video, y'all. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. This is your big homie, the Armchair Operator. I'm signing out, y'all. Peace.